We'll start with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Viraya Ashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, welcome all the devotees for the Srimad Bhagavatam Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31. The chapter is entitled Narada Instructs the Prachetas, Shloka number 14. I seek the blessings of all before I begin. So we'll recite this shloka, very famous shloka. Yata taror mula nishe chanena Tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashakaha pranopacharha cha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvahanam achyutejya yata taror mula nishechanena Tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashakaha pranopacharha Chayet yatendriyanam tataiva sarvahanamachyutejya yata taror mula nishechanena tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashakaha pranopahar acha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvahanamachyutejya. Word-to-word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yata, as, taroho, of a tree, mula, the root, nishechanena, by watering, tripyanti, are satisfied, tat, its, skanda, trunk, bhuja, branches, upashakaha, and twigs, prana, the life air, upaharat, by feeding, cha, and yata, as indriyanam, of the senses, tatha eva, similarly, sarva, of all demigods, arhanam, worship, achyuta, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ijya, worship. Translation: as pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses, the limbs of the body, similarly, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality. Purport. Sometimes people ask why this Krishna consciousness movement simply advocates worship of Krishna to the exclusion of demigods. The answer is given in this verse. The example of pouring water on the root of a tree is very appropriate. In the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, first shloka, it is said, Urdhva Moolam Adashakam. This cosmic manifestation has expanded downwards, and the root is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Lord confirms in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Krishna is the root of everything. Therefore, rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna Seva, means automatically serving all the demigods. Sometimes it is argued that karma and jnana require a mixture of bhakti in order to be successfully executed. And sometimes it is argued that bhakti also requires karma and jnana for its successful termination. The fact is, however, that although karma and jnana cannot be successful without bhakti, bhakti does not need the help of karma and jnana. Actually, as described by Srila Rupa Goswami, Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Pure devotional service should not be contaminated by the touch of karma and gyan. Modern society is involved in various types of philanthropic works, humanitarian work, and so on. But people do not know that these activities will never be successful unless Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is brought into the center. One may ask what harm there is in worshipping Krishna and the different parts of his body, the demigods. And the answer is also given in this verse. The point is that by supplying food to the stomach, the indriyas, the senses, are automatically satisfied. If one tries to feed his eyes or ears independently, the result is only havoc. Similarly, simply by supplying food to the stomach, we satisfy all the senses. It is neither necessary nor feasible to render separate service to the individual senses. That the conclusion is that by serving Krishna Seva, everything is complete. As confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Kritahaya. If one is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is automatically accomplished. We'll offer prayers and then we'll discuss on this verse. Om Jnana Timirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurotushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I would like to seek the blessings of all before we begin. So this section is very instructive for all. The chapter begins with how Prachetas, they lived at home for thousands of years and they developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. And at last, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then they left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. And then they went and met the great liberated sage, Jajali, and they became advanced in consciousness that they looked at every living entity with equal vision, and they were practicing yogasana for mystic yoga, and they controlled their life air. And then, while they were practicing this, the great sage Narada appeared. So, as soon as the Prachetas saw, then they worshipped Narada and began to ask questions. And the Prachetas asked We hope you met with no difficulty. So, words of hospitality. And then they said how it's our great fortune that we are able to see you. And just like how the sun relieves the fear of darkness in this material world, everyone, whether it's a remote forest or city, but whenever there is darkness, there is fear. And this whole material world is called tamasoma. So there's a dark place. And what is that darkness? Not just absence of sun, but absence of knowledge. And the pure devotee actually reveals that knowledge. Mm. And the darkness of the night produces a fear brought out by thieves and rogues. Same way, darkness or ignorance of spiritual knowledge causes fear because the senses and the other selfish people in this world is compared in the Bhagavatam like all the thieves and plunderers. They plunder the living entities' energy. So that is the fear caused. All the uncontrolled senses, then all the selfish people around who are just wanting to take away. So that is the fear caused due to ignorance. Right? Similarly, by you're traveling like the sun, you drive away all kinds of this one. And then out of their humility, they are speaking that being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. So this verse also gives us a warning that, of course, they are speaking out of humility. How we can understand that they never forgot, because in the first verse itself, Maitreya is saying they develop perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. And at last, they remembered the blessings. So they never forgot, but they are giving us a warning, we can say, that when one is too much attached to material enjoyment, then all the good instructions, all the blessings that one has got, one may forget all the things, and he may become unfortunate. So that is a warning, as stated in Bhagavad Gita also. Bhogaishwarya prasaptanam taya apahrita chetasa vivasayatmika buddhi samadavna vidiyate. For one who has become attached to bhoga, that means enjoyment, and aishwarya, that means opulence. And in the Grihastha ashram, we have good opportunity to develop both. So then taya apahrita chetasa, and he may have this, but if his mind is also carried away by all these, so having is not a problem, but mind should not be attached or carried away by that. Then generally it happens like that. So vyavasayatmika buddhi, the single pointed attention to perform bhakti and reach the spiritual abode, that may not come like that. So out of humility, they're asking. And Narada, also being such a compassionate Vaishnava, he was thinking, Prachetas, why are they unnecessarily wasting time in controlling senses and mystic yoga? When they perform bhakti, automatically all the senses also become controlled like that. So here, Narada Muni is speaking on that theme, that without devotional service, there is no meaning of any severe austerities or even process of hearing, etc. And then Narada is telling all these may be very important for spiritual advancement, but unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all these processes are useless like that. So, and how to understand that Supreme Personality of Godhead? Krishna is called Adokshaja. That means he is beyond the perception of mind and the senses. So how to understand a person who is beyond the mind and senses? The thing is given in the scriptures. The famous shloka, Iha yasya harer dasya karmana manasa, not that. There is one more shloka where it is said, Atha Krishna namadi. Atha Krishna namadi na bhaved grahyam indriyaha. That means with our senses, it is very difficult to understand Krishna's Ata Krishna Namadi. That means Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. Krishna's name, form, pastimes, qualities, they are very difficult to be understood through the Indriya. Why? Because these Indriyas are material and Krishna is spiritual. So, how to understand this? Ata Krishna Namadi, Na Bhavet Grahyam Indriya, Sevon Mukehi Jihvado, Swayam Eva Spurutyadaha. By rendering service to Krishna, this senses, although material, slowly becomes spiritualized because of being in touch with the spiritual personality, Sachidananda Vigraha, Krishna. Then, when they become spiritualized, then slowly one can understand the name, form, qualities, pastimes of Krishna. So, Sevon Mukehi Jihvado, starting from the tongue. And Prabhupada also mentioned several times, tongue has two functions. One is chanting and another is vibrating and honoring prasadam. So we can start with that and then render devotional service with all other senses also, just like Ambrish Maharaj. Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane. There they said Karau Harer Mandira Marjanadisha. So we can use all the senses. Hands can be engaged in cleansing the temple of the Lord. Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor. The mind can be constantly remembering on the lotus feet of the Lord by reciting how Mahaprabhu, when Mahaprabhu saw the Vishnupad at Gaya, he immediately began to extol the glories of the lotus feet of Lord, began remembering various pastimes and other various, how various others have taken the dust of Lord's lotus feet and got benefited. We also have that famous bhajan in our Vaishnava songbook, Ekana Bujino Prabhu, Tomara Charane, like that. So by Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor, our mind can be constantly meditating on Lord's lotus feet, glory of the Lord's lotus feet. How it is this same lotus feet that Lakshmi is hankering to serve. It is with the dust of this lotus feet that Lord Brahma gets the power to create. And it is when this feet just touched the stone Ahalya, she got transformed. Like that, one can go on remembering. So, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor. Mind can be focused on the lotus feet of the Lord. How this lotus feet is like a big boat, which if one takes shelter of the huge material ocean, which is compared to a ocean that cannot be crossed, ocean of nescience, that can be crossed as easily as one jumps over the hoof print of a calf. We have that famous shloka also in the Bhagavata. So remembering all this, one can Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane. Vacha, by singing the glories of the Lord. Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane. Karau Hare Mandiram Arjanadisho. Shrutim, hearing Achyuta Kata. And then Mukunda Linga Laya Darshanadisho, by taking darshan of the beautiful forms of Lord, like that. And the senses, the body can be used by touching the lotus feet of all the Vaishnavas and by holding their hands and dancing in the kirtan, like that. And the by tongue, by tasting tulasi that's offered to this one, and the nose by smelling the fragrant things that is offered, like that. So by all this, one can purify, and eventually one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like that. So recently Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj also, so nicely in our temple, Maharaj was saying that in the purport of this verse, Prabhupada is talking about pure bhakti, anya bilashita shunyam. So Maharaj was very nicely saying, oh, this may not be possible for all our devotees. How to have anya abhilashita shunyam, no desires for any gyan karma, not possible for all maybe, So then Maharaj said, at least this is pure bhakti's definition. But what is bhakti? Sarvopadi vinirmukta tatparattena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti uttamam. So bhakti means using all our senses to serve Rishikesh. That is more easy because cultivating Anyabhilashita Shunyam is called this one, Uttama Bhakti. But at least one can practice the normal bhakti to Krishna, and eventually one will go there like that. Such a hope-giving statement, because when we hear Rupa Goswami's definition, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam, Bhakti Uttamam. So this is Uttama Bhakti, but at least one can start with this like that. So Maharaj was saying in that recently when Maharaj came, so we can. And in this purport and verse, Narada Muni is convincing Pracheta, saying that how one need not think of anything else except satisfying Lord Vishnu. And Narada is giving two examples, just like how these famous examples we quote during our preaching also to all the newcomers. Just by watering the root of a tree, it energizes all the trunk, branches, trees, everything else. And just like when we water when we feed the stomach, all other senses and limbs of the body get strength. Similarly, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, all the demigods are also automatically satisfied. And in the purport, Prabhupada is bringing out mainly the theme of the demigod worship and the other side distractions from bhakti, which is all philanthropy and other things like that. So Prabhupada is saying, if we just focus on satisfying Krishna, automatically all the demigods are satisfied, and automatically the highest philanthropy and everything else is done, humanitarian work. So we will touch upon these things also a little bit. So Prabhupada is also mentioning here, just like how in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying this material world is a perverted reflection of a banyan tree, and the banyan tree's original root is Krishna. So Krishna is saying, I am the original root, and the same thing is mentioned here also by Narada. And Prabhupada is also bringing out the statement that Krishna is again confirming in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, matta sarvam pravartate. So one may think both look almost similar. Aham sarvasya prabhavo means I am the master or Prabhu of all the material and spiritual worlds. And matta sarvam pravartate, everything else emanates from me. Isn't both one and the same? One may ask. So Acharyas are clarifying that first, when Krishna says Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, he's talking about the creations. That means the Jad, the material and spiritual creations are from me. Then one may ask a doubt, but what about the living entities? Are they also coming from you? That's why Krishna is saying, yes, Matta Sarvam Pravartate. Even the living entities, they are also coming from me only. So automatically, Krishna being the source, when we please the source, everything else is taken care like that. And Prabhupada is also clarifying here how karma and gyan need bhakti for its success, but bhakti does not need any help of karma or gyan. And why? Because it is spoken in the Bhagavatam also that janayati asu vairagyam. Automatically, bhakti produces these two children, that the knowledge and detachment. So one need not separately endeavor for that. Bhakti automatically produces that, because Krishna within the heart, Krishna Surya Sama, Maya hai andhakar, jaha Krishna taha Maya ra na, jaha Krishna hoite taha Maya ra na adhikar. So wherever Krishna is there is no place for Maya or darkness. So in that way, Krishna enlightens the living entity. That way we can remember several pastimes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's that famous pastime where he meets with the South Indian Brahmana, where that Brahmana was not very learned. He was imperfectly reciting the Bhagavad Gita shlokas, and all the other so-called scholarly Brahmanas were laughing at him. So Mahaprabhu, but however, saw that he was constantly shedding tears. So he went and inquired, what is it, O Brahmana, that is bringing so much ecstasy to you while reading the Bhagavad Gita? And he said, I'm not very learned. My pronunciation may be imperfect. I'm just doing this on the order of my Guru. My Guru has asked me to read Bhagavad Gita. And every time when I open the Bhagavad Gita, the form of how Krishna, being the chariot driver of Arjuna and taking such a menial position and guiding Krishna, although he's the Supreme Lord, what a Bhakta Vatsal he is. Just thinking about Krishna makes me shed tears like that. And Mahaprabhu said, you have attained the perfection of reading Bhagavad Gita, which is to become devotee. Because Krishna finally says that Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijani priyosi me. So that is the perfection like that. So automatically by doing bhakti, gyan, karma, all that is accomplished. No need to endeavor, and that is not needed also. Krishna is only looking for bhakti. He's not looking for other things. And whatever is required is attained like that. So several other things that came to my mind here is Srila Prabhupada himself in the book Life Comes from Life book, where he's arguing against the scientist. Prabhupada is constantly quoting this theme. I am not a big research scientist like all these scientists who are coming to argue with me about whether God exists or whether life came from chemicals by evolution or life was produced by a supreme person like that. I am not done enough research or I'm not a scientist, but still, how am I able to defeat all the scientists? Because Prabhupada would say often this, Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Kritahai. And once we do Krishna Bhakti, all other things, whatever is required, Krishna automatically gives that knowledge to the heart of the devotee, what is required for preaching, what is required for strengthening his or her own faith, like that. And one more verse Prabhupada would quote was, Yasmin Vigyartam Sarva, once you know Krishna, you'll automatically know all other things, like that. So Prabhupada himself, we can see, was a firm believer, and he never encouraged any side other things apart from just satisfying Krishna. And Krishnanand Prabhu also often quotes that wonderful exchange between Srila Prabhupada and His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj. So Jayapataka Maharaj once was telling Srila Prabhupada, should I go and enroll for some Bengali course to learn Bengali so that it will help more in preaching, like that? And Prabhupada would say, yeah, learning Bengali is all right for preaching, but whenever you get time, it would be more nice if you can sit and chant more number of rounds, because that would automatically give Shakti. As Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur also said, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Pravartan. That means without Krishna Shakti, one cannot preach and transform the hearts of the living entities. And only when our heart is flooded with Krishna consciousness, preaching is an outpour of the Krishna Bhakti that we have. So remembering this, Prabhupada would always emphasize that if there is time, Prabhupada was not after too many other skills, bare minimum what is needed, but actual core Krishna conscious is what I'm same thing is spoken here in this one. And Prabhupada is also saying about how various philanthropic works, humanitarian works, etc., that also is not going to be successful unless Krishna is brought to the center. We can see big inventions. Without Krishna in the center, it is only a source of more disturbance, like that. So when the nuclear fission was invented, whole world was jubilant that we can produce energy more efficiently. But the first use of the nuclear fission was in World War II, like that. So we may think I'm doing a big philanthropic work, but without Krishna Bhakti, it is of no use. Any activity, even let us say somebody is feeding the poor daily, but if that person is not giving Krishna Bhakti to the people who are receiving benefit, with all the food that they eat, they may end up doing sinful activities. So indirectly, we are giving them energy to perform sinful activity. So therefore, we are not just going to give food, we are going to offer it to Krishna and give them Krishna Prasad so that it may purify their consciousness. And before they honor, we also make them chant like that. In that way, we try to add Krishna. So sometimes people accuse, so why are you not philanthropic? But Prabhupada would also quote this example that when a child is lost in a big procession and he's desperately looking for his parents, some people may come and give him lollipop, some may come and give him some chocolate, biscuit, etc. It may satisfy the child for a moment, but once the lollipop is over, the child will again start crying. And even if the lollipop is there, still the child is going to remember the mother and constantly be yearning for the mother. The same way, the living entity is happy only when he is in touch with the Supreme Lord. Just like a fish will be satisfied only when in water. But now the philanthropy and all other things are like trying to give fish different other things except water, or just like giving lollipop and chocolate to that lost child. But the devotee, he does the real philanthropic work, actually showing him who his father is, mother is, and then guiding them to that person, like that. So that is something that we can remember here. And why no need to worship any demigods? Sometimes in South India, especially, demigod worship is very popular. So they ask, so one other example we have heard is we are all the son of a wealthy millionaire. So just like if the son of a wealthy millionaire, for him to get his money, there are two ways how he can get his money. One is his father, being a wealthy millionaire, will certainly have an accountant. So the son can go and directly ask the accountant, please give me 10,000 rupees. And the accountant will not question why, etc., because the son belongs to the millionaire's. He's the son of the millionaire, and he'll just write in the account books that he has given 10,000 rupees and just distribute it. He's not going to question the child. Why do you want it? What are you going to use it for? Like that. But if the child has another option also, directly go and meet the father. So sometimes the child may think meeting the father and getting 10,000 rupees is little difficult. Why? Because father will ask 100 questions. Why are you using it? What is it meant for, etc. But going to the accountant is very easy because he's not going to ask any questions. In the similar manner, whenever somebody wants something, sometimes the demigods, they may satisfy our desires more quickly, just like how the accountant will quickly give the money to the child. But whether the accountant is bothered on the future of the child, if the child uses it for buying some drugs and eventually gets caught by the police and then is put behind bars, the accountant is least bothered. The same way, the demigods have an official relationship with the living entities. As spoken in the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter. They are dependent on Yajna, and in turn they bless us. So it is a paraspara. So whenever there is mutual give and take, it is a business exchange. It is not considering the welfare of the other person. So they may satisfy our desires more quicker than sometimes even the Supreme Lord, but they are not bothered about the outcome. In endless examples we have seen how Prabhupada would often quote on that Vrikasura or Bhasmasura, how he got the benediction from Lord Shiva, that anybody whose head I touch, their head should break into pieces. So it was a dangerous benediction. If it was Lord Vishnu would have certainly guided, but Lord Shiva just said, okay, tatastu, without even making him realize that this benediction may be harmful for him himself, like that. So because they just are supposed to do their duty. So in that way, also one can understand that demigod worship, it may be quicker, just like getting money from the accountant, but it may lead to havoc for the person also. And the accountant will not be held responsible tomorrow if the son was caught buying drugs, because he says, I was just authorized to give money, and he came, he asked, like that. Same way, for the sinful reactions that we may later on accrue, the demigods will not hold responsibility. They may just give us based on our intensity of worship. But Krishna, he not just, Krishna may also give, but before giving it, he'll first purify the heart. Just like a father. A father gives the entire wealth to the son only, eventually. But before doing that, before handing over all the business to the son, he will make sure that the son is initially made responsible. And once he sees that the son is responsible, eventually he hands that over, like that. So all the demigods automatically are satisfied by when Vishnu is worshipped. So here, so previously I was just telling that if people ask what is the harm in worshipping demigods, this is one thing we quote. Another thing that we also quote regularly, which we hear, is that just like at home also, if you are a mother, as a mother, the mother also always wants that, generally we see this, especially mothers will relate to it. Sometimes the mother is little strict. Mother will not give chocolate or etc. to the child. But now imagine the child understanding that mother is strict, but the child foolishly not realizing that that strictness is for my good. Imagine she goes to the neighbor, or she goes to grandmother or some auntie, uncle, and then says, uncle, can you give me this chocolate? Or to the neighbor, can you get me a chocolate? Two things happen. One is the child suffers, and it also pains the heart of the mother, because the mother is thinking, oh, I'm doing everything for the good of my child. Why is the child unable to understand that this strictness is for her good only, like that? In the same way, Krishna also is a person. He also has a heart. He says, I am your mother, I am your father. I am wanting to do the best thing to you. And imagine, with all good intent, Krishna wants us to come to him, but we are saying, no, Krishna, I don't think you are the right person. I will go to somebody else to get my desire. Krishna's heart also is somewhat, although he's Atmaram, still he has loving relationship and wanting to do the best for all the living entities who are parts and parcel of him. So that is also something. Just like a mother would never want to, if at home you are not able to, then why are you doing the same thing to Krishna? Krishna also is our mother. As a mother, you understand the feelings of what you go through when your child goes to a third person. The same way, Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita. Krishna also has a heart. Why not understand Krishna's heart also, like that? So that is another thing. And some others may say, what is the guarantee that by worshipping Krishna, all the demigods are satisfied? So I would like to quote one pastime which we have heard from some devotees previously. There were two brothers. I think this was in Bengal. One poor person, but he was a staunch worshipper of Vishnu, and another, he was quite rich. He had a huge garden with lot of wonderful flowers, and he was a worshipper of Durga or Kali. And he was such a staunch worshipper that he would use all the flowers he would offer daily to Durga Mata, and he would not allow even one flower to be plucked for any other worship of any other demigod. So once it so happened, when this poor brother came to this rich person's house, he saw this wonderful garden, and he asked his brother, can I take at least one rose? Because I'm poor, I'm not in a position to buy and offer these roses to my worshipable deity, Vishnu. Can I take at least one of them and offer to Krishna, like that? And he said, no, I'm sorry, because this entire garden is dedicated for worship of Durga Mata. So then his brother respected his sentiments, but he thought, anyway, it is said in the scriptures, Krishna is Bhava Grahi. So in his mind, he just plucked one most attractive rose and he offered it at the lotus feet of Krishna. And then the next day, it so happened that this brother plucked the same rose and then he offered it to Durga Mata. And when he offered it to Durga, immediately Durga Devi appeared. And she said, of all the days worship, today I am most pleased with you. And he was surprised. Daily I am doing the same worship. What made you so happy today? Then she said that in all other days, you used to just offer the flowers directly to me. But today you have offered me Krishna Prasadam, which even all the demigods we are hankering for, and it is so rare to get. And then she went on to say how it was your brother who in his mind offered this to Krishna, and Krishna is Bhavagrahi. He accepted his devotion and therefore this became prasadam. Today you have given me my master's prasadam, like that. So then he asked, oh, that means you are not supreme? There's somebody above you? Yes, of course. Krishna is the master of all. Ekale Ishwar Krishna, Ara Sabhabritya. Krishna is the supreme. So then he asked, why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked for it. Then he immediately said, now with your permission and blessings, Durga Mata, shall I go and worship Krishna? She gave her wholehearted blessings. He became a great devotee of Krishna. And later on, he named himself as Chandi Das because Chandi became his Pata Pradarshaka Guru, like that. So like this, one more story which we hear from Prabhupada also. A person wanted to serve the highest position in the society. So he served the panchayat, but then he understood that the tahsildar is higher than panchayat. He gave up the panchayat service, went to tahsildar, and then from tahsildar he went to CM, then prime minister, and then finally prime minister. When he was worshipping Krishna, he understood that Krishna is supreme. That way. So in this world, we always have a desire to serve the greatest personality. And why not to serve the greatest person, like that? And Prabhupada is saying, other worship is avidhi purvakam. If somebody tries to feed through the eyes or other things, it causes havoc. We cannot put hot rasam or anything in the eyes. It will just cause havoc, like that. And in another place, Prabhupada says, the food can be given in only two ways. One is three ways, in fact. One is through the mouth. The other is through the IV drips. And sometimes if somebody is constantly vomiting, then they even give it through the anus. That's called enema treatment. So, but Prabhupada says a healthy person eats only through the mouth. When they are diseased, then all the other things are given, like that. So same way, the Jivatma, the right way to eat is through the stomach. Same way for them, the right form of worship is worshipping Lord Vishnu, like that. So we can recollect all this. And Prabhupada also gives one nice story. One old woman, she was once cheated by some of the relatives and they stole her land. So she was very upset. So her neighbor ordered, why don't you meet the magistrate? And when she goes and tells the magistrate about the whole problem, the magistrate takes special interest considering she was old, and he solves the case and gives the land back. At that time, the old lady started blessing the magistrate. In the next life, may you become a policeman, like that. So the magistrate was shocked. Is this blessing or curse, like that? So there Prabhupada writes, and he concludes in the story that for this old lady, the highest understanding was policeman. She did not know anything beyond the policeman. So sometimes not knowing the difference between demigods and this one, it's like bringing the magistrate level down. Sometimes people equate Krishna to other demigods. It's like telling the magistrate become a policeman in the next life, like that. So such kind of people, the Bhagavatam says, are pashandis who equate Krishna to other demigods. And even the demigods are uneasy. Imagine the police comes, the inspector is there, and next to him, the DCP is also there. Now, if we go to the inspector and start glorifying in front of the DCP, he will feel very uneasy because he'll say, I am deriving all the powers from DCP, and he is the one who is instructing me, guiding me, and you're telling I am supreme, all in all. They also feel uneasy. Sometimes people worship demigods saying you're all in all, you're all in all. They actually feel very uneasy because they know I'm deriving all the powers from there. And they're also fearful that Maya Shakti is so strong. And when we falsely puff up a person, they may commit offenses and make mistakes and eventually may displease Krishna, like that. So they are also not very happy on hearing such flattering from the devotees. So considering all that, uh, uh, Prabhupada, of course, right, has very mercifully, right from day one, told us how one should worship Krishna. But I thought we can discuss all this in our preaching circles also. And for us also, sometimes uh, uh, some devotees in our temple, I see such high standards. They are going through so many difficulties. But so many astrologers in India, you have a lot of people who are ready to give free advice. So many people, they give astrological solutions. So many, they say, do this karma kanda, that karma kanda. But some devotees I see in our temple, although they are not going and asking for advice, they are getting free advice, but still they are completely convinced. I don't need to do anything else. I just need to worship Krishna, and Krishna will take care of all of them. So we can also pray to Lord and pray at the lotus feet of such Vaishnavas, where whatever difficulty they go through, they are still staunchly attached to the Lord's lotus feet. Just like Kolavecha Sridhar, where Nimai would sometimes tell, Sridhar, you're so poor. Why don't you worship Durga? So many people in Bengal, they're rich because of worshipping Durga. Sridhar would never budge an inch from Lord's worship. So we can pray at the lotus feet of all these elevated Vaishnavas that may our faith also increase, that any difficulty, I don't have to depend on anybody except Krishna, because by watering the root, automatically all others get nourished. So with this, I would like to conclude. Please forgive me if I spoke anything beyond my realization, or if it was displeasing to anyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thanks a lot for the very nice class. Like there are many takeaways, and one that touched my very strong was that when the kid goes and asks for chocolate from the other house, like mother feels very bad, and there you mentioned that Krishna is also a person, and then we are also doing the same. So like Krishna also feels very bad or pain at the heart. So we have to like wholeheartedly take the shoulder of Krishna, because whatever he does is everything good for us. I mean, it is a very nice point, Roger. Like such a takeaway for me today.
Yes, at least I thought in our South India, especially the mothers, they'll immediately be able to connect this example when we tell them. Because in India, major challenge, South India is a lot of demigod worship. When we say, as a mother, would you like to? No, they will say. Same way, Krishna also has, that is, and he knows what is best.
Yes, Proj. Thank you, Proj. Any other devotees who wants to ask any questions or clarifications? Lines are already unmuted. I think all devotees are very clear in the chat. Saraswati Mother mentioned Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Thanks for the wonderful teachings.
Thank you, Mataji.
Prem Priya Radhika Mata also mentioned. Thank you for the wonderful class, quoting slokas and nice examples from Shastra.
Like
And
to see all your blessings.
examples, Prabhuji.
Shall we end, Prabhuji? Then?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can